Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Monday here on a Flawed Man of God channel. My name is Stuart Davis. I am a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor, I'm not a biblical scholar, and I haven't been to seminary. Not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about Christianity, talk about the Bible, talk about a wide variety of topics, current events, all sorts of happenings in the world, and giving you the perspective from me, a what I would consider your typical Christian. I've been a Christian all my life, 40 years, non denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. I'm just in the Word every day, trying to do better, trying to make sense of it all as much as I can. So, if you are somebody who is interested in learning more about Christ, if you are being drawn to some sort of interest, if there's some sort of nagging bit in the back of your head, wondering if there's more to your existence than just your life here on this planet, um, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. Hopefully, you get something out of this. Um, you find it appealing. You can get some sort of insight from me, and as the perspective that I can offer. And it's a very layperson approach to things. It's not the expert opinion. It's just me, somebody you would probably run into if you started going to a church and you were sitting next to them in a pew, maybe. Um, Hopefully, it's able to springboard you into a relationship with Christ. But either way, please tune in. Hopefully, you get, like I said, you get something out of this. If you are already a Christian and you just enjoy Christian topics and conversation, welcome to the show. We love to have you here. We run this very similar to uh, a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. It's a very small community at the moment, and that's great. We have a great group of regulars who tune in and are part of the chat. And regardless whether you're a Christian or you're just interested, I encourage you to be part of the chat. The chat's great. They're constantly keeping me accountable for what I say and giving me their thoughts. I'm just the mouthpiece here. I'm just the guy putting the credit to putting the camera in my face and putting this channel up here for us to have discussions. So come on in and join in. We'd love to have you here as we grow or maintain this community that we have. So Monday, it's a big game. I wonder how many people are watching the game. I am right now. I got it on just over the monitors right now and watching Georgia versus Texas Christian University. Wondering who's going to win. I'm kind of leaning to. I'm kind of rooting for Texas Christian. Kind of rooting for Texas Christian, but I don't mind either one. I don't mind either one. So, how's everybody doing this evening? Alias is first somehow, but I'm glad you're here. Same thing with you, Dresden. Dresden, I don't know how much you follow actual football, as I know you guys call soccer football, but I'm talking about actual football with a oblong pigskin, 4 downs. You throw it around the 100-yard field. No, there isn't as much flopping, but tonight's the big night. I'm a big college football fan, so I'm going to get through this episode as quickly as possible. But that doesn't mean I'm going to cut anybody short if y'all have got anything to say. I'm just not going to do anything to try to prolong it. Not a big fan of horns or frogs. I mean, hey, got my one. So it's funny. So there's a group of 3 families. We're all very close. We all hang out with each other all the time. I'm from Virginia, born and raised. The other 2 are transplants. The other 2 husbands in the in the families are transplants. One is from Georgia, and the other is from Michigan. And one's a Georgia fan, and one's a University of Michigan fan. And so it was almost a big night. It's almost kind of a big night. Now, might not have been broadcasting if we were going to get together and have some sort of thing, but we're not. I watched the one where the foot touches the ball, so actual football. Well, that's funny because Texas Christian just kicked a field goal, and that's how you start a football game is you kick it off to the other team. In soccer, y'all do other stuff, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, has everybody's weekend been pretty good? I feel like our Friday night broadcast was a little blasé, which I'm fine with. Toe ball. I'm fine with. We're gonna have quiet streams. We're gonna have active streams, and I don't mind. Um, but hopefully, when we have a quiet stream, it's more to that you guys have got other things going on, and not that the quality of the host is lacking. But tonight's gonna be rather quick. Fine, the one with no hands allowed to touch the ball because that's gay. So you can touch the ball in football, but in soccer, the goalie can touch the ball. And if the ball goes out of bounds, you can pick it up and throw it from out of bounds, inbounds. Is this another type of football that nobody's allowed to touch the ball with their hands under any condition? Can the ball incidentally hit the hand? Like in kids soccer, like there's handball. Like you can have a handball, but like if somebody kicks the ball and it just like bounces off of somebody and bounces off a hand, we don't normally stop play for that. I don't know. I don't know, Dresden. I don't know because I don't watch communist uh watch communist sport. I was called out by one of the folks I'm good friends with because I drink and crunch and chew on ice during the stream on the mic on camera, and apparently that's cringe, but it's gonna happen. All right, everybody. We're gonna get right into this. We're not covering stuff that's super in depth right now. It's more descriptive, so we're not missing a whole lot of narrative or in this. Hey, Nico, great. Glad that you made it. There's not a whole lot of narrative in this. It's more description, but we are going to have a prayer of sorts from King Solomon. And we're going to talk more about his palace and the furnishings of the temple and other things. And there's kind of a little bit that happens in between there. So we're going to get right into it. Like I said, I want to go watch the game. The game's not as important as what I'm doing, though. So don't think that you need to not bring something up if you have a question or if you got a comment. Just know that I'm not going to be putting any filler in. Dresden's got to put a million asterisks after this. um, Nico, I didn't. So generally, I'm not in the sanctuary. I am doing security out in the lobby, and I'm watching the sermon on stream. And I just pulled up the chat, and I know that some people comment in the chat. So I said, hey, halfway through it was like 3/4 of the way through the sermon at that point, and Nico comes out of nowhere on the chat at my church's live stream and says, hey, Flawed, how's it going? I'm like, oh, snap, Nico's here watching. So it was good seeing you. All right. And Texan Italian's in here. We're all ready. We're all ready to go. Like I said, bring something up if you go, but I'm going to it's going to be all killer, no filler. All right. So we last left off with Solomon building the temple for God. We looked at some pictures. It's pretty impressive. Obviously, it is a source of legend, right? So let's get into it. Solomon builds his palace. It took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. He built the palace of the forest of Lebanon, 100 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high, with 4 rows of cedar columns supporting trimmed cedar beams. It was roofed with cedar, roughed, depending on what area and dialect of English you speak, with cedar above the beams that rested on the columns, 45 beams, 15 to a row. Its windows were placed high in sets of 3, facing each other. All the doorways had rectangular frames. They were in the front part in sets of 3, facing each other. He made a colonnade 50 cubits long and 30 wide. In front of it was a portico, and in front of that were pillars and an overhanging roof. He built the throne hall, the hall of justice, where he was to judge, and he covered it with cedar from floor to ceiling. And the palace in which he was to live, set further back, was similar in design. Solomon also made a palace like this hall for Solomon also made a palace like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had married. Also, a reminder, he married Pharaoh's daughter, which I guess is pretty important, but also at the same time, he didn't marry an Israelite. Just going to put that one, just tuck that little nugget of information, if you haven't already, away. Hey, Porcupine. All right. Now that we've gotten that covered, let me tell you, Porcupine, I'm miserable. Okay? Miserable with this thing. I got to last. I'm 3 days into this, and I hate it. And this is part of, so my friends and family thought it was stupid to go, I'm going to go for a fast. They said, what are you cutting out? I said, sweets. And they're like sweets, like dessert sweets. Like, I'm still going to eat, like, if it's Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal and I'm eating cereal for breakfast, or waffles, I'm not going to not have syrup, but it's all the extra stuff. And a lot of people don't realize it. My father-in-law does, because he sees me do it all the time. How much junk I eat outside of, normal meals. Because I'll pick up cookies, I'll pick up chocolates, I'll pick up ice cream, milkshakes, whatever. I love dessert. Always have, always will. I'm a grown-ass man. That's what I'm that's what I'm going to get into. And Porcupine, when you said bring it up, I was like, okay, I'll give up that and alcohol. And social media will happen for Lent. I hate this. Lent's going to be easy, I think. Giving up social media is going to be easy. This sucks. This absolutely sucks. But it's good for me. But no, what does my wife do? Sunday, she goes to the grocery store and buys 2 bags of Oreo cookies. And so I go into the pantry, kind of like, what do I need to eat? I need to eat something, but I'm not going to eat the junk. And then I look over there and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. She knows. She knew it. And she went to Target anyway. It's killing me. It's killing me. Sorry, not sorry. Porcupine. But that's where I'm at. I don't know where anybody else is at. Y'all can pop in y'all's first impressions if y'all decided to fast for anything in the chat. And who knows, maybe this year, maybe at the beginning of next year, Porcupine, I'll be mature enough to do something like you're doing. But I doubt it. The temple's furnishings. King Solomon sent to Tyre and brought Huram, whose mother was a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, and whose father was from Tyre and a skilled craftsman in bronze. Huram was filled with wisdom, with understanding, and with knowledge to do all kinds of bronze work. He came to King Solomon and did all the work assigned from him. We will prevail, Porcupine. Thank you. He cast 2 bronze pillars, each 18 cubits high and 12 cubits in circumference. Got the That is, wait, where are we at? 715. 715 puts us at, that is about 27 feet high and 18 in circumference. 18 feet. That's huge. 27 feet high is tall, but here it is, 18 feet in circumference. Dang. That's big. A network of interwoven chains adorned the capitals on top of the pillars, 7 for each capital. He made pomegranates in 2 rows, encircling each network to decorate the capitals on top of the pillars. He did the same for each capital. The capitals on top of the pillars in the portico were in the shape of lilies, 4 cubits high. On the capitals of both pillars, above the bowl-shaped part next to the network, were 200 pomegranates in rows all around. Wondering if it's real pomegranates? Probably not. He erected the pillars at the portico of the temple. The pillar to the south he named Jachin, and the one to the north he named Boaz. The north on the top, on the capitals on top, were the shape of lilies. And so the work on the pillars was completed. He made the sea of cast metal, circular in shape, measuring 10 cubits from rim to rim and 5 cubits high. It took a line of 30 cubits to measure around it. Below the rim, gourds encircled it, 10 to a cubit. The gourds were cast in 2 rows in one piece with the sea. The sea stood on 12 bowls, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. That's that big bowl, like I said. That big bowl we saw in the pictures. The sea rested on top of them, and their hindquarters were toward the center. It was a handbreadth in thickness, and that's how thick it was. Damn. Thick. It was thick. And its rim was like the rim of a cup, likely a lily blossom. It held 2,000 baths. What's a bath? $12,000 gallons. 12,000 gallons. So it was a 12,000 gallon tub, basically. He also made 10 movable stands of bronze. Each was 4 cubits long and 4 wide and 3 high. This is how the stands were made. They had side panels attached to uprights. On the panels between the uprights were lions, bulls, and cherubim, and on the uprights as well. Above and below the lions and bulls were wreaths of hammered work. Each stand had 4 bronze wheels with bronze axles, and each had a basin resting on 4 supports cast with wreaths on each side. On the inside of the stand, there was an opening that had a circular frame 1 cubit deep. This opening was round, and with its basework, it measured a cubit and a half. Around its opening, there was engraving. The panels of the stands were square, not round. The 4 wheels were under the panels, and the axles of the wheels were attached to the stand. The diameter of each wheel was a cubit and a half. The wheels were made like chariot wheels. The axles, rims, spokes, and hubs were all of cast metal. You're getting a sense of how intricate this all was and why it took 13 years and why he got the expert involved to an expert involved to do some of the crafts work. We got Nico says he's struggling, and Porcupine with the encouragement here. An Italian Texan. He then made 10 bronze basins, each holding 40 baths and measuring 4 cubits across. 1 basin to go on each of the 10 stands. He placed 5 of the stands on the south side of the temple and 5 on the north. He placed the sea on the south side, at the southeast corner of the temple. He also made the pots and shovels and sprinkling bowls. So Huram finished all the work he had undertaken for King Solomon in the temple of the Lord. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 2 sets of network decorating the 2 bowl-shaped capitals on top of the pillars, the 400 pomegranates for the 2 sets of network, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network, decorating the pole-shaped capitals on top of the pillars. The 10 stands with their 10 basins, the sea and the 12 bowls under it, the pot, shovels, and sprinkling bowls. So this chapter is just describing the architecture and stuff for the most part. And we're going to go into the next one. It's going to be a little bit more discussion about it. All these objects that Hiram made for King Solomon for the temple of the Lord were of burnished bronze. The king had them cast in clay molds in the plain of the Jordan between Succoth and Zarethan. Solomon left all these things unweighed because there were so many. The weight of the bronze was not determined. Like we lost count basically. We just stopped trying. It was so much bronze, we just stopped trying to keep note of it. And look, we see how fastidious they are about all the stuff that they're using and all the materials. This is to the point where like, now we can't keep track of it. It's not worth it. Solomon also made all the furnishings that were in the Lord's temple: the golden altar, the golden table on which was the bread of the presence, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the right, 5 on the left, in front of the inner sanctuary, the gold floral work and lamps and tongs, the pure gold basins, wick trimmers, sprinkling bowls, dishes, and censers, and the gold sockets for the doors of the innermost room, the most holy place, and also for the doors of the main hall of the temple. When all the work King Solomon had done for the temple of the Lord was finished, he brought into the things that his father had dedicated, the silver and gold and the furnishings, and he placed them in the treasuries of the Lord's temples. Linko, lol, it went off budget like all the projects designed by architects. I don't think there was a budget involved here, Nico. He's sitting there. King Solomon's like John Hammond in Jurassic Park, no expense spared. We'll see who ends up being the dinosaurs in this tale. And we shared the pictures of the temple Thursday night. And we saw, look, it's a big deal. It was government work. We shared the picture of. So let's look at King Solomon's palace in the forest of Lebanon. So you guys, to those of us watching, can get an idea of how massive this is. So up here, there's the temple, King Solomon's temple. Here's the palace. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And how cool would that have been to see? How cool would that have been to see right there? How cool would have been to walk through that? Like I said, we talk about a lot of this stuff in the Bible, and we talk about this is all like a history book. And it's amazing. Like, imagine having the privilege of living in these times. Again, this is a time where miracles were something you could see. They were so tangible. There was no denying that God existed. Like there's no room for error. There was not as much faith required. Your faith in God was faith that was showing that you was obedience, basically. It's just obedience, because there was no question about there wasn't a lack of tangibility for God. Their Ark of the Covenant exists. Miracles happen overtly during these times. We have angels showing up and doing things. And that's why you get the dedication that comes into this. This is incredible. This is not today's government work, Alias. This might have been like with the resources, if they'd have had the resources, this is something that like early American or Victorian age architects could have manufactured. Not today. Today's stuff would have been ugly, terrible. And there we go. So let's get back to it. So Nico, a lot of stuff changes, and we haven't got to that part of the Bible yet to really come into to really discuss this at length. And I would love to get Eric on here and some other folks on here to talk about this. But a lot of stuff changes at the arrival of Christ, really. The arrival of Christ. There's kind of a game changer that goes on, and with Revelation and the establishment of the new church and the new covenant, right? Um, it's just not something. Now, that's not to say that they don't show up anymore and that miracles don't happen. There absolutely are miracles that happen every day, but like not. And the Catholics are very firm believers in specific miracles that are overt. What's the one that I'm thinking of? There's one where Mary makes an appearance in front of like thousands of people in Spain or Portugal, like around World War One ish time period. But she initially apparently appears to 3 kids. Oh, what is it? Now it's going to bother me. Hold on. It's a Marian apparition. Oh, Fatima. Marian the Fatima apparition. It's a little look. There's going to be. I don't know how to feel about them. There are Protestants who are definitely this was definitely not Mary. This was definitely a demon, or this is definitely this is definitely Catholic shenanigans. And there are Catholics who are like, no, this is well researched, well documented, and witnessed by many people, and it was definitely. And there are prophecies that come along with it and secrets and all this other stuff. It's hard to gather, because here's the thing, because there are secrets, and the Vatican, when it comes to Christian history, is so they're so tight-lipped about it. And the funny thing about it is in more recent years, the Vatican has opened their vault of reliquaries and libraries and all this other stuff that they have to atheists and people who have an agenda against Christianity. And I don't know really the purpose of that. I think traditional Catholics will tell you more that this is what would they say? It's more of the modernists and Jesuits involved. And there's quite a big controversy among the Jesuits right now, which is kind of the group that traditional Catholics are not happy with. That's a faction within Catholicism. It's a school or whatever. It's something. I need to get Raph or Joel on here to talk more about that side of things. But no, I mean, I've heard Raph can make a really good case for Fatima being legitimate. But I could bring probably Jeff from Operation St. Cyprian on, who could give an equally knowledgeable account saying it's aliens, maybe. But when we say aliens, we mean demons. So they still happen. But it's not like we're all in some tight-knit community together and we all have the opportunity to see it, or we all have an opportunity to have a close friend or family member who we trust said, oh no, I was there. It happened. It absolutely happened. We don't see it as much. The miracles that we see are more nuanced now, are more day to day. And we were talking about this in Sunday school yesterday. It's one of those things where you look back and it's more, it feels like it's more God positions you. He sets you up into situations to decide or to figure out where you need to go, to make the best of a situation. And I don't know if that's he sets us up in situations that will make or break us, or if it's he's setting us up in situations because he knows that we can get through it. I don't know. They're getting really meta and really more into the higher levels of Christianity. I'm just not the good source for that, Nico. I'm just reading the Bible. What we do know is King Solomon's temple in King Solomon's palace was awesome. Ayla says, Nico, I can understand wanting to get to the New Testament quick, but by going through the Old Testament, you may see the New Testament better understanding. You'll be able to see things they're talking about in hindsight. Yes, and that's the thing. And like I said, this is the first time I read through the Bible the way we're doing it, only faster. I think there's way more value in the way we're doing it right now. But doing it here is we're able to pull back and go, oh yeah, that makes sense because X happened. It's and I get it. And there's times where I say, man, I can't wait till we get to here. I can't wait to get to here. And I can't, but at the same time, I'm really liking where we are now. The part where it was really hard is Leviticus and Numbers and keeping you guys, because that was around the time that you guys were coming on board. Numbers and Deuteronomy, I think, was when it was really, that was when around the Nick stream and a lot of you guys came in. It's kind of hard to muck through that because you're talking about rules and everything. This isn't engaging. It's not as engaging, I guess is the best way to put it. And it's hard for me to make it engaging, which is so weird. We had a guy, so we talked about Genesis. We started a study on Genesis in Sunday school yesterday. And the guy who opened with Genesis, and now it's a prepared thing, but he goes through explaining Genesis 1 through 3. And I go, man, I wish I had the skills to talk about that the way he did. He did such a great job explaining things. And I'm like, heck on it. I'll have to get the name for you if any of you guys want to check it out. Alias, I need to keep reading always, and I don't. That's why I love this stream. Hey, who knows, dude? I might read right through this. We might be doing this again at some point. I don't know. We'll see where it goes, right? Because we're going to do some other stuff after we're done with this reading, whenever that happens. If that's 2 years from now or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, we'll get it. I'm interested to see how long this is going to take too. All right, chapter 8: the ark brought to the temple. Because this is it, right? This is the whole purpose of the temple, so that the ark has a house, so that God has his abode. So there's the palace and within the palace. And now it's time to bring the key piece, the seat of the Lord. Then King Solomon summoned into his presence at Jerusalem the elders of Israel, all the heads of the tribes and the chiefs of the Israelite families, to bring up the ark of the Lord's covenant from Zion, the city of David. All the Israelites came together to King Solomon at the time of the festival in the month of Ethanim, the 7th month. When all the elders of Israel had arrived, the priests took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of the Lord and the tent of meeting and all the sacred furnishings in it. The priests and Levites carried them up. And King Solomon and the entire assembly of Israel that had gathered about him were before the ark, sacrificing so many sheep and cattle that they could not be recorded or counted. Again, the Israelites are fastidious, fastidious recorders of information. We know this. They have a whole chapter of the Old Testament called Numbers. And this becomes, if it wasn't already, a cultural thing. It's become the Hebrews and Jewish people are also fastidious at record keeping. That's why it's when we go through the genealogy and everything, and they're like, "Well, how do you know?" It's like, no, this is something that happens, that is well documented and recorded. Where did we say? The priest then brought the ark of the Lord's covenant to its place in the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place, and put it beneath the wings of the cherubim. The cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark and overshadowed the ark and its carrying poles. These poles were so long that their ends could be seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but not from outside the holy place, and they are still there today. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had placed in it at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites after they came out of Israel. I'm sorry, they came after Egypt. When the priest withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. He's stretching out. He's like, yeah, it's not a bad spot. I've had better, but it's one of those things. God could probably make something or could make something a million times better. But it's like when your kid hands you something that they made yourself and you know that it came in here. That's when that's when it's special, right? It might not be the best. It's got plenty of flaws. It might not be very good, but you appreciate it because of the effort, the sacrifice, and the meaning that came behind it. And as much as we ooh and ah over what King Solomon's temple looks like and what his palace looks like, it's nothing compared to the glories of heaven. But why does God appreciate what Solomon does for him? Why did he appreciate what David offered to do? There you have it. He loves us. R.A. Torrey coming in from Facebook. Good evening, Mr. Flawed Man. What is your take on Song of Solomon 1:5? I'm not going to get into it because we're reading through it, but let me just take a quick look at it. How do they have it broken down like that? I'm going to have to read this whole thing in I'm gonna have to read this thing at once at some point, Mr. Torrey. Not to sideswipe your question. I'm not in the zone on that. And like I said, I'm not some of those people who I can't pull up understandings of verses on the fly. But love to have you. I'd love for you to tune in when we do it, and then I can give you kind of a better idea of it. Just not. But I appreciate you tuning in. Where was I? Like for me, like 1:5, it's just like a part of. I want to read all of one to pull it off and to pull it out because that's and other people might be better and I know other people are better than this than me. But pulling out small parts and talking about it, it's harder for me because I'm all one of those people. I always like the broader context. I always like it together, and and it helps put me in a place where I can kind of give my take on it with the heavy asterisk next to it that my take could be completely wrong and stupid. Also, Helpology is getting blocked. I don't know what that's all about. That's the first time. Hey guys, look, let's appreciate this. Helpology was not an adult site spam bot in our chat. It was thanks YouTube for I guess putting somebody else a different type of spam in there that's less explicit. Anyway. Crap, where was I at? Here we go. And the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. Then Solomon said, "The Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. I have indeed built a magnificent temple for you, a place for you to dwell forever." While the whole assembly of Israel was standing there, the king turned around and blessed them. Then he said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who with his own hand has fulfilled what he promised with his own mouth to my father David. For he said, since the day I brought my people Israel out of Egypt, I have not chosen a city in any tribe of Israel to have a temple built so that my name might be there. But I have chosen David to rule my people Israel. My father David had it in his heart to build a temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. But the Lord said to my father David, you did well to have it in your heart to build a temple for my name. Nevertheless, you are not the one to build the temple, but your son, your own flesh and blood. He is the one who will build the temple for my name. The Lord has kept the promise he made, as he does, folks, as he does. I have succeeded David, my father, and now I sit on the throne of Israel just as the Lord promised. And I have built the temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. I have provided a place there for the ark, in which is the covenant of the Lord that he made with our ancestors when he brought them out of Egypt. Hey, that's joy right there, guys. That's praise, but that's like, from the heart, like true praise and elation when you're talking about years of work. And it's not just in Solomon's probably not doing it. He's seeing the labor of the people. This is this is work of love. This is work of honor. This is all of that stuff. And it's completed. And he's looking back on it. My assumption here. I assume he's looking back on it and he's thinking, wow, all the things that God has promised from Abraham to now, right? But he focuses on his dad. He's like, everything that God has promised, he has made come true. And what a glory that is that we are able, that because of his promises, we were able to build him a temple. And we've seen it fulfilled. He makes this promise before, definitely, I mean, obviously before Solomon comes to power. I'm not sure if this is even, I don't know if I can't remember if he makes the promise before or after Solomon is born. I don't know. I have to look it up. I'll do some research on it, but it doesn't matter at that point. He's predicting the future long before it happens. So what is Solomon going to do? Solomon's going to pray. He's going to do a prayer dedication. So let's get into it. Verse 22, then Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in front of the whole assembly of Israel, spread out his hands toward heaven, and said, Lord, the God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven above or on earth below, who keep your covenant of love with your servants who continue wholeheartedly in your way. You have kept your promise to your servant David, my father. With your mouth you have promised, and with your hand you have fulfilled it, as it is today. Now, Lord, the God of Israel, keep for your servant David, my father, the promises you made to him when you said, you shall never fail to have a successor to sit before me on the throne of Israel, if only your descendants are careful in all they do to walk before me faithfully as you have done. And now, God of Israel, let your word that you promised your servant David, my father, come true. But will God really dwell on earth? The heavens, even the highest heaven, cannot contain you. How much less this temple I have built? Yet give attention to your servant's prayer and his plea for mercy. Lord, my God, hear the cry and the prayer that your servant is praying in your presence this day. May your eyes be open towards this temple night and day, this place of which you said, my name shall be there, so that you will hear the prayer your servant prays towards this place. Hear the supplication of your servant and of your people Israel when they pray towards this place. Hear from heaven, your dwelling place, and when you hear, forgive. When anyone wrongs their neighbor and is required to take an oath, and they come and swear the oath before your altar in this temple, then hear from heaven and act. Judge between your servants, condemning the guilty by bringing down on their heads what they have done, and vindicating the innocent by treating them in accordance with their innocence. When your people Israel have been defeated by an enemy because they have sinned against you, and when they turn their back to you and give praise to your name, praying and making supplication to you in this temple, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your people Israel and bring them back to the land you gave to their ancestors. When the heavens are shut up and there is no rain because your people have sinned against you, and when they pray towards this place and give you praise to your name and turn from their sin because you have afflicted them, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your servants, your people Israel. Teach them the right way to live and send rain on the land you gave your people for an inheritance. When famine or plague comes to the land, or blight or mildew, locusts or grasshoppers, or when an enemy besieges them in any of their cities, whatever disaster or disease may come, and when a prayer or plea is made by anyone among your people Israel, be aware of the afflictions of their own hearts, and spread out their hands towards this temple. Then hear from heaven your dwelling place. Forgive and act. Deal with everyone according to all they do, since you know their hearts, for you alone know every human heart, so that they will fear you all the time they live in the land you gave our ancestors. As for the foreigner who does not belong to your people Israel, but has come from a distant land because of your name, for they will hear of your great name and your mighty hand with your outstretched arm, when they come and pray towards this temple, then hear from heaven your dwelling place. Do whatever the foreigner asks of you, so that all the peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you, as do your own people, and may know that this house I have built bears your name. When your people go to war against their enemies, wherever you send them, and when they pray to the Lord toward the city you have chosen and the temple I have built for your name, then hear from heaven their prayer and their plea, and uphold their cause. And Mr. Torrey, I see your chat. I'm getting right here. If you will, Mr. Falk, I speak to 1 Kings 8, 46 through 53, when all Israel scattered into all nations in history. There we go. I'll get to it after I finish the whole thing. Just so you know, I'm gonna backpedal once we finish the dedication. When they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you become angry with them and give them over to their enemies, who take them captive to their own lands, far away or near. And if they have a change of heart in the land where they are held captive, and repent and plead with you in the land of their captors and say, we have sinned and we have done wrong and we have acted wickedly. And if they turn their back to you with all their heart and soul, and if they turn back to you with all their heart and soul in the land of their enemies who took them captive and pray to you towards the land you gave their ancestors, towards the city you have chosen and the temple I have built for your name, then from heaven, your dwelling place, hear the prayer and their plea and uphold their cause and forgive your people who have sinned against you. Forgive all the offenses they have committed against you and cause their captors to show them mercy. For they are your people and your inheritance, whom you brought out of Egypt, out of that iron smelting furnace. May your eyes be open to your servant's plea and to the plea of your people Israel, and may you listen to them whenever they cry out to you. For you singled them out from all the nations of the world to be your own inheritance, just as you declared through your servant Moses when you, sovereign Lord, brought our ancestors out of Egypt. When Solomon had finished these prayers and supplications to the Lord, he rose from before the altar of the Lord, where he had been kneeling with his hands spread out towards heaven. He stood and blessed the whole assembly of Israel in a loud voice, saying, Praise be to the Lord, who has given rest to his people Israel, just as he promised. Not one word has failed of all the good promises he gave through his servant Moses. May the Lord our God be with us as he was with our ancestors. May he never leave us nor forsake us. May he turn our hearts to him, to walk in obedience to him, and keep the commands, decrees, and laws he gave our ancestors. And may these words of mine, which I have prayed before the Lord, be near to the Lord our God day and night, that he may uphold the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel according to each day's need, so that all the peoples of the earth may know that the Lord is God and that there is no other. And may your hearts be fully committed to the Lord our God, to live by his decrees and obey his commands, as at this time. There we go. The wisdom of Solomon. Look, all written down here. Now, Mr. Tory was, I'm assuming RA is Mr. I don't even know why I do that. It's just for some reason I thought, I just assumed, right? I don't know. This is Facebook. We're not friends on Facebook, but I'm glad you found the stream when Israel was scattered into all nations of history. This is going to happen. This is going to happen in the Old Testament as well as after the Bible as well. We're going to see this happen several times, and we're going to see this happen starting really in Kings and Chronicles with some of what Solomon says. And look, if Solomon has got half a brain, right, and he understands the history of the Israelites, he knows, dude, they're going to mess up. He knows the history of Judges. He knows the history of Saul. He knows the history of Moses, the people talking to Moses, going up on Sinai and can't even leave them alone for a few days without them just absolutely screwing up. So we're going to have multiple instances where this is going to happen. Multiple instances where this is going to happen. But I think it's very, and we're going to cover some of that. But what we're probably not going to cover is where we're at today. And I think this is, and I'm not super educated on this, but I know that there's dispensationalists and all sorts of different type of theories on and perspectives on on Israel. But what we ultimately see once Christ gives the Great Commission and we start to scatter, it's weird that we scatter into the different nations at his command. But what happens with, I guess, the ethnicity, the ethnic uh, Jewish people and who retain uh, the the waiting for the Messiah and deny Christ. Um, we see them kind of get scattered to the winds. And it's a very interesting thing to look at. And what do we see happen? Oftentimes, the Jewish people continue to be a persecuted group, and they continue to deny Christ. That going into that side of things is really where that's really where as far as I go with them. Um, because again, that's a religion that denies the existence of denies the sovereignty and the deity that Christ is. So, you know, my job would only be to tell them, no, he's real. There's a whole lot more to um, to your faith than you know, because your Messiah has already arrived. Your Messiah has already made his sacrifice and established a new covenant and made and won the great battle. So, as far as like all the connotations that happen in verse 46, it's interesting foreshadowing, and there's lots of layers to it, in my opinion. And the way I read it, and this is reading this 2,000 years after the fact, or no, 2,000 years after Christ. Um, this is just kind of what I'm seeing. And I'm like, oh, okay. But Solomon kind of knows this, and we don't really know everything that's going on in Solomon's head. We don't. Not everything is written down that Solomon understands. Any conversations that, or any other things that might have been made, that Solomon have been made aware of through God. Nico said a lot of the prayer I heard was, when the people do screw up, do remember that they're still your kids and help them. Yeah, for real. Hopefully that's enough of an answer that you were looking for, Mr. Torrey. Um, I mean, that's my perspective on it, and that's just how it feels when I'm reading it, because it's interesting how much of the Bible, when you read it, especially when we're looking in the Old Testament, and there's a lot of things happening, and not um and we're not doing the setup of the church and that, but a lot of things are happening, and it's a lot of pointing to the New Testament that we it's funny how many layers so much that is said and done works. Again, that's what makes all this interesting, right? That's what makes the Old Testament meeting the New Testament very cool and very unique out of all the other religions out there. This is very unique to Christianity, in my opinion. And Nico, right, exactly. And this is not the first time we've heard one of our biblical heroes say something like that. This is not the first time we've heard God basically say this. I love you guys. I wish you would stop disobeying me, and I'm doing whatever I can, or I'm doing many things possible to help you guys redeem yourselves. He's building up to a really big way to redeem for people to be redeemed. So I love this prayer from Solomon. Solomon's got such great stuff. The dedication of the temple. All right, so we're going to close out with this. At least also helps that they were chosen. Yeah. But here's and here we go. He talks about this. Um, As for the foreigner who does not belong to your people Israel, He's talking about the Gentiles. He's talking about other folks. He's talking about spreading the name and the glory of God. Right there. It's not as closed off as people as some folks would have you believe. The dedication of the temple. Then the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifices before the Lord. Solomon offered a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to the Lord, 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the Israelites dedicated the temple of the Lord. On that same day, the king consecrated the middle part of the courtyard in front of the temple to the Lord. And there he offered burnt offerings, grain offerings, and the fat for the fellowship offerings, because the bronze altar that stood before the Lord was too small to hold the burnt offerings, grain offerings, and the fat of the fellowship offerings. Look, as big as everything was, dude, it's a big deal. This is the this is the inaugural festivities. And so everybody's bringing something, and they're bringing a lot. Again, no expense spared. So Solomon observed the festival at that time, and all Israel with him, a vast assembly, people from Lebo Hamath to the Wadi of Egypt. They celebrated it before the Lord our God for 7 days and 7 days more, 14 days in all. On the following day, he sent the people away. They blessed the king and then went home joyful and glad in heart for all the good things the Lord had done for his servant David and his people Israel. And they all lived happily ever, right? Boom, we're at the end of the Bible. It was all great. And we all live in this. No, this isn't the end. This is only first of 2 Kings to be followed up by First and Second Chronicles. But there you have it, folks. All right, thanks for asking me that question, because that's a cool part to talk about. And there's going to be times where people are scattered. Nehemiah, where the people are scattered, and something like this is going to speak pretty well about it. What's God going to do? Well, we'll find out when we read. Spoiler alert. Oh, Nehemiah. Yeah. Nehemiah's building their wall. He's building the wall. Anyway. All right, guys. Just some real quick stuff. Plan on streaming tomorrow. There will be no stream on Thursday. We'll see where we're at the other ones. But the plan is stream tomorrow. And hopefully you guys can make it. Including you, Mr. Torrey. All who are not seeing Mr. Torrey in the chat, he is on the Facebook side of things, like I said. And Facebook and YouTube do not show each other. All right, so to Mr. Torrey, to alias Nico Blaine. Well, hey, happy streaming tonight, Blaine. Helpology, even though I blocked you. To Porcupine Mayhem. To Dresden. And your messed up understanding of what is football and what is soccer. To Texan Italian. To all of you guys. To anybody who's listening. To anybody who's catching it on the replay. If you like this stream, give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to it. If you want to get updates on when I stream, I generally stream around 8 o'clock every night. That's actually going to change, folks. Just a big heads up. Around sometime in the spring, early summer, I'm going to be moving this channel from 8 to 8:30-ish. Wednesday night, we've got the other Paul coming on. He's going to come on and talk about his time when he was at the original Hillsong Church, and his thoughts and impressions of being there, and why he is now Anglican. We are going to go over that. Wednesday is going to be an awesome stream, and then afterwards, I'm probably going to send you guys over to Christian Mario's YouTube channel, because Paul will be over there as well right after he's finished with me. Now, with that said, you guys Have a great evening. Be safe. Go enjoy the football game, go enjoy family, go enjoy whatever time that you have. But whatever you do, glorify God with it, and we'll talk to you, and I'll see you hopefully, guys, tomorrow night. And with that, um, keep me in your prayers. I've got something going on tomorrow that's eventful. And I would appreciate you guys just giving me a thought and a mention to God that everything goes smoothly. And with that said, guys, everybody have a great night and God bless.